Hi, everyone. August 25th, 2022. Yet another installment of 30 Minutes with Spyglass Lending. Of course, as usual, as always, we have an incredible guest today, someone with a long history in real estate. She's going to wow us with many an anecdote, many a story, and she's going to tell us what she's been doing now. Please welcome to the show, Jalda Hoff. She is a partner in the design-build firm Hoff-Genoist. Welcome, Jalda. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Aaron. Nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Let's start with this because I always like to start right here. Where are you from originally, and how'd you make your way to Los Angeles?
Good question. I am originally from Holland, the Netherlands. I studied in Belgium and lived there for 6 years, and then I came over here a long time ago. I was 25, came over here for a guy. And then I had a job. I was a consultant with McKinsey & Company, and they're international. And so I got them to transfer me over here and came here, broke up with a man, and have been here pretty much ever since.
Broke up with the guy, stayed with the job for a little bit?
Stayed with the job for a little bit, then left the job.
But if you don't mind, what is McKinsey? What was that?
McKinsey is a international consulting firm. They do strategic consulting for huge companies. So it was a great first job. It was hard work, lots of travel, but super interesting to kind of work with, senior management of big companies on strategy. It was cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, not for me long-term, but.
Well, let's talk about long-term for a second. What was next on the list?
Next, I went to two big corporations, which was a kind of a natural flow. So I went to Mattel, the toy company.
Sure.
Was there for, I think, 2-3 years.
El Segundo, if I'm thinking correctly, right? They're down there.
At the airport, exactly.
Yeah, sure.
Barbie, the home of Barbie.
Yeah, what were you doing for them?
Barbie in my life, but I never understood that. But yeah, it was great. It was a toy company. Working in strategy, with the top management on strategic stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Then after that, I went to New York for a little bit for a startup. It was the internet explosion. Ended up loving New York, but not liking the company. So I came back. I only was there for 6 months. And then
that's it. A 6-month stint in Manhattan. That's all you got?
It was great. I was in my 20s. Yeah. It was amazing. It was absolutely great. And it was a great experience to work for a startup. But it was in tech, which isn't really my thing. And it was a really great concept. But there was other companies with a concept, and they won out, and they didn't see it going anywhere.
So I came back,
went to Avery Dennison, another big corporation, where I here's where my life change happened. I was doing a management training program, so they stick you in different jobs for like 6 to 9 months, where you're managing something. Sorry, my husband is crawling. He's crawling to the bathroom.
He's crawling behind you to the bathroom. Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway,
we've got high production value going.
Too funny. Sorry. No, so I was doing. So they stuck me in different jobs for 6 to 9 months to kind of train you to manage one of their businesses. It's kind of like 3M is the bigger competitor. So they make like everything. They make street signs. They make like paper. They make all kinds of stuff. So I ended up managing the sticky paper business, paper that you buy to make stickers out of. I was running that, and it was in Cincinnati, Ohio. Actually, the suburbs of Cincinnati, Ohio.
Wait, so you had left Los Angeles yet again, and were living in Cincinnati?
Yeah, but it was because it was temporary. I basically was flying there every week, and I had an apartment there.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So, but I was there, I think 6 to 9 months. But that's when I said, all right, I'm good.
Right. A little taste of the Midwest, bring me back home. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's when I remember actually there, we had to rebrand. They had 2 brands of sticky paper. We had to rebrand. They'd been lazy. They hadn't paid attention, and they were losing market share. So we had to rebrand. And I remember I was just most interested in that we had this graphic design firm working on the logo. And that is what I liked.
All right.
It was just a logo, but I was like, I like design. I don't like paper. I love people. I love managing people, but it just wasn't for me. So that's when I started a computer bag company. So I was corporate. I made good money and wanted a nice computer bag because they were boring. They were to me, they were nothing.
Right.
And I figured, okay, I'm not a designer, but I can make a computer bag look nicer than black canvas. I
I
can do
think all
that.
of us at one point have had a Toomey computer bag like that. You've got to go through that for a period of
You have
time
to,
if you're
exactly. And
carrying one around.
it's what you could do as a woman.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
did that, and then I ended up making some evening bags for friends, which
Mhm.
they liked, and then that took off,
Yeah.
and that was a lot more fun than computer bags. So I kind of morphed into just handbags, evening bags. Did that for 10 years, and then it was going great. You know, it was in
Mhm.
the big stores and international, but then the recession hit, which
Mm.
was not fun, and I met my now husband, um, and he
Which
was
was fun.
that was fun. That made
Right.
things more fun. He was an architect, but so
Mhm.
both of our businesses were struggling, right? People weren't buying houses, weren't building houses.
Sure.
Um, and I was just struggling with the business. It wasn't fun. It was just no one was buying anything. I
Right.
was
Your line was a bit more on the luxury side, right? So it kind of became like, do I need this as opposed to want it? So.
exactly. It was like the first thing to go. All the big stores immediately cut back on the
Mhm.
non super big brands, but and it just it had been 10 years, and then I got um, I kept it up for a bit. My husband and I had bought a little house in Culver City that was a total dump but super cute, and we did it up kind of on the side. And that
Yep.
was our first project together. Yeah, I loved it. I had already done my own home.
Was this the intention? Was this you had already kind of come together and said, "Hey, we're gonna flip this property together. We're gonna redesign it. We're gonna
Yeah,
rehab it," or was it more of like, "Let's buy a house together," and you were gonna live there, and then ultimately turned into a flip? What happened
no,
there?
it was always a project.
Okay,
Like
great.
he obviously loves that, and I had owned a house in Laurel Canyon.
Hmm.
I had completely done up, years before, and I loved it. I just loved the process. So I always wanted to do it again, and I just never had a plan for like when or how, or like I wasn't planning to leave my job for it. But then we did that as an opportunity, and it was probably our highest margin return we've ever done. We did a lot of the work ourselves, and then I became pregnant with my first child, and I had to fire everyone at the handbag company except one person who was kind of running the joint for me.
Yeah.
And then she said, I want to move to New York. I'm
Okay.
sorry, I'm quitting. So I
Right.
was like, you know what? I'm 9 months pregnant. I am not enjoying this job. I'm very much enjoying the other job. I think we'd already started another project. Yeah, we had.
But
Um,
this is right around 2009, 2010.
yeah,
Okay.
we bought the first project. I think it was 2008. It was like basically it ended up being the bottom of the market.
Right.
So it was
Yeah.
great. Um,
Yeah.
and then we did another one right after that one. We got a couple of investors involved.
Hmm.
Um,
A little bit bigger project,
a little bigger,
needed
exactly.
more money. Sure.
Exactly, need more money. We had done so well the first time that and it was friends and family. It wasn't like we didn't go out and find strangers. Um, and then so I was 9 months pregnant, didn't have an assistant, and was like, you know what? No one's buying handbags. I'm gonna give it a break for a year.
Hmm.
Try this house thing, try the mother thing, see how I feel in a year. If I want to go back, if I miss it, I'll go back. Like no one's gonna miss me for a year. Nothing's happening. And if I don't, and I don't, and I didn't look back. So then it became my full-time job very, very, very quickly.
And what a perfect time to do it, right? Because again, we're talking 2009, 2010. I mean, as a
Yeah.
reminder to anyone watching, like obviously 8, the massive crash, 9, not a tremendous amount going on, but starting to see, a little bit turn of the market. Maybe there's some optimism. But by 2010, I mean, we had quickly started to see a sizable escalation in equity, and flipping was all the rage. A tremendous amount of foreclosures, a ton of short sales hitting the market, all of this inventory, and anyone who knew what they were doing and get their hands on it, certainly yourself included, started to do quite well, right? So, how many were you doing at the time? I mean, per year
Yeah, we
once
did.
that happened?
We definitely went bigger and bigger. We got more and more investors. We had a little while where we had a few strangers, a few people that really weren't friends and family anymore.
Hmm.
Um, and we were doing great. We were doing great. We had a great track record, so people, wanted in.
Sure.
Um, we did I think the most we've ever done at the same time was 4 at a time in different stages of like design, construction, selling, all that stuff. And
Yeah.
that's when we were like, all right, that's a bit much. Because meanwhile, we had another child. So we
Okay.
had,
Yeah. Right.
yeah, 19 months.
All happening at the same time. You're like, how? I'm not sleeping already at night, but do I need
It-
the added pressure of financing 4 properties at the same time
I swear
to
I was,
really wake me up?
I had C-sections both times actually. And
Mm.
I think it was the first one. I think we were in escrow, and I was working from the hospital bed.
Unbelievable.
Because here's the thing, it wasn't even that weird for me, because it's just, I'm still me, right? And I still have phone calls coming in, and if I could take the phone call, I'll take the phone call. Like, you're not taking a leave because it's just the two of us.
Right. That's incredible. I mean, you're just there doing it. It's one thing for dad to be like, okay, well, I'm just kind of sitting here being on the phone, but you yourself, as you say, like you're powering through. That's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because that is kind of just how it is with us. And it's natural because it's true. It's like we're on our own. No one's paying us. We have to do that.
Right.
And if I was okay to do it, I wasn't, it was whatever, send a document. It wasn't a big deal, really. It's weird, but it's,
and there is no maternity leave, no paternity leave from house flipping. I mean, when you're doing that, every minute counts, every day, every dollar is ticking away when you're paying holding costs, when you're thinking about getting something back on the market and just turning it around and selling it and doing another, right?
We got better and better at financing, which was great. It was this huge thing that I learned that I'm super grateful for understanding and knowing.
Tell us, please, if you don't mind, how were you doing the financing at the time for those projects?
So it started out with our own cash, and then it was friends and family, and then it was also strangers. And we like, for the bulk of the time we were developers, we had a couple of lenders that were essentially also friends and family, but hard money lenders. They would take first and second position, and then we would have investors, which would include us, and we would own the LLC in different shares. And then, after the lenders got paid, then the shareholders would divvy up the rest. And so that was great. But
so you'd maybe put a more conventional lender in first position. In second position was the friends and family. Is that what you're mentioning, right? Like
the first lender was friends and family.
Oh, as well. Okay, so there was a sizable, like the larger portion in first position, and then more of like the gap financing or this call it mezzanine financing in second position a little bit, and then you'd have this limited partner LLC that were all partaking in the profit participation once the lenders got paid back.
Yeah, exactly.
Were those lenders, were they just taking straight interest, or were they taking any participation themselves?
No, they were taking, it's funny because they were friends and family. So in the beginning, they were just pure investors. And then they changed to being, I mean, that was what they did with their money. They invested in real estate, the hard money lenders.
Right.
And they had a small group of their own friends and families. But it was nice because there was a relationship. It was obviously not that casual. There was, deeds and all that stuff, but there was a trust, and that was cool. So they came first, and then the investors got their share. We also learned to do construction lending, but not that much. But I do kind of like it because you're not paying everything up front. Like, it used to be that we had to get all the money lined up front because we had to know who owns what share. So that was hard. Like, we'd have to know exactly what the budget was before closing escrow because we had to know who the owners were. So that wasn't very flexible. So I think we learned flexibility through financing.
And this construction lending you're talking about, you mean a specific like rehab loan, a flip loan, or more like a ground up construction for some of the larger projects?
We've only done it once, to be honest, and it was on a property that we intended to keep ourselves.
Okay.
I don't even know why we never did it on others. I think probably, if I think about it, that would have been so complicated to, like, who owns what. And so we did that on our own property, because it made sense. Because you basically paid interest once you use the money, not right off the bat.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up because it's a big misconception for a lot of borrowers. Like, oh, if I take such a sizable loan amount, including the construction, I'm paying this interest on this massive loan amount. But the reality is, it's really just about the purchase money you take, and then what's being held back, call it in the kitty, for lack of a better word, or the construction reserve. You're paying interest when you draw that money, and only when you draw that money, not until then.
Right.
So,
no,
big
exactly.
difference.
Yeah. And it seemed overwhelming at first because you have to, get everyone to sign off on what do you call them? The blanking. What do you call it? The lien release. There you go.
Right.
So every single time I paid somebody, I had to get a lien release from them. And I mean, we have our own subs, so you're talking to laborers that don't often do this. And they're like, what am I signing away? I can't. So anyway, so I had to do all that work, and it seemed overwhelming. And you have
Right.
to constantly have the budget updated and have all your receipts and show the lender.
Hmm.
They come and inspect that you've done what you say you've done, and then they'll pay you. But it wasn't actually that overwhelming at all. And I think it's a great thing to have learned. So, and now that we're working more with clients, they sometimes have to do this. And I'm happy that I have some knowledge of the situation, right? And I can help them do it. And the contractor basically ends up, I think, managing that.
Yeah.
So I mean, and I like money. I mean, I like thinking about that stuff. Like it's not at all my husband's cup of tea. He likes building and designing, but I still
That's why you make a good team.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No, I still kind of like the spreadsheets and that stuff. But the reason I brought up the financing is it's interesting. But you were mentioning carrying costs, and that is so true. And that's something that people do not understand about flippers. And I hate that word, by the way, flippers. It's very flippant. But about developers, they think everything's cash. They think we just buy something. Like I'm also an agent, right? So I would sit at the open houses trying to sell our properties, and I'm being the agent. I'm not necessarily talking to people about that I designed the house. You know, that's could be awkward. So
you're wearing a different hat at that point, right?
Exactly.
You're just, hey, disposition, sell this property, be the real.
So exactly, learn, like listen to see what they're saying. Because if as soon as I say I'm involved, which you know at some point you say it's no secret, but they can't be as open, or they feel like they can't be as open. So I just wouldn't say that, and then I'm expecting the agent to be, you know, the developer as well. But I remember once I was at this property that was big. I think we listed it for $3.5 million. And there was these neighbors, these two women that came, and they were talking like, "Well, so what's it for 3.5? That's crazy. And what do they buy it for? Oh, this. Oh, they're making $2 million or something stupid like that. Like, are you?" It takes money to build, and by the way, you have no idea the proportion of money that financing is. And we had a property in Venice that was a difficult one because it happened during COVID. We were paying $25,000 a month in interest. So that's a big deal.
That's a sizable amount. I mean, and if I may, because you know, I just want to interject for just a moment and kind of set a tone for this. A lot of these loans we're talking about, these rehab loans or construction loans, are offering somewhere between 12 to 18 months. You know, and you're already on that ticking clock to get the project done, but you're already feeling that psychologically to get it off the plate because, to your point, when you're fully extended, when you take all that money out of the kitty, you could be paying upwards of something like $25,000 a month, not to mention the utilities, not to mention, you know, the taxes that are accruing or the insurance that keeps adding up. I mean, every little thing about these holding costs that you're right. I mean, a lot of people don't otherwise think about on the back end. But even still, even with all of those costs, it's still obviously a profitable business if you're buying right, if you're doing a great job on the design and the back end and the sale. So
it is. But for sure, the first 10 years was easy because we were also totally riding on the wave of real estate increasing. And when we hit the tail end of it, it was definitely different. The margins, you know, as we were buying and doing the math on the margin we could make, we just had to accept that you know, it's no longer 20 to 30%. Which is not. I mean, if it's worst case scenario 6%, you do it because there's nothing else.
There's nothing else that's still paying you 6%, right? Or getting to put your name on something or stamping it or that achievement. I mean, to your point, like I think 2010, 2011, all the way maybe through 2015, 16, there was that 20 to 30% ROI that was just incredible. But that kind of went by the wayside for a little bit until the pandemic. I mean, until anybody who's done this over the last, let's say, 18 months up until recently, I mean, saw an insane return, especially the large builders, probably to the, you know, the end of 2020 to just the beginning part of this year. There was this period of time, like if you did a value add flip or if you did a large construction and put it on the market at the right time, wow. I mean, wow, the return was exceptional.
Except if you're us and your two projects that you had left as a developer were in Venice. And the situation was very unlucky.
Unfortunately, probably the biggest and one pocket of town that, you know, especially if you're doing a project there, that it's no longer as enticing as it used to be to live. Yeah, to your point.
No, it's crazy because we had two expensive homes. And we loved Venice before the pandemic because Venice is like, it really appreciates design.
Right.
And as a developer, you have to kind of tone it down, right? You have to be special, and we wanted to always be special because we wanted we were developers because that was the name of our job, but we were designers first. Like, I think in a way we're very different than most developers because we're the architect. We love design. We weren't just trying to quickly flip something. We care about the design the most.
Right.
So we love Venice because we're like, okay, people appreciate design. We can go a little crazy. We can be a little bit more different, And so we did, and it was great. But no, it was definitely that was when we were like, all right, you know what? When even your 6% is at risk to become negative 6%, that's when you're like, all right, you know what? Let's take what we learned and do it for client, do it for other people. Don't only do it as a developer, because it is. I mean, it was great when it's great, but it's not a given. It's not a guarantee. You got two people making no salary and counting on profit. So it's great, but it's risky.
And look, I mean, you've obviously had a very long run as both real estate agent and investor, and done so many projects and so many flips. And to your point, I mean, built up, and like so many other developers, kept moving up market and all of that. But now, as you're saying, you're really doing that for others. You're really designing and kind of showing them, going through the process for others, right?
Yeah. And it's great because we literally do it all. We bought, I still buy. I'm not a realtor in the sense of getting clients. That's not my full time. It's not my job at all.
Right. It was just about the disposition of your properties, especially, right? Exactly. Saving on the commissions.
Exactly. I was noted early on. We had an agent, and she was great, but I was finding the properties. I just had to call her to get in, which is a waste of time. Mm-hmm. And then I realized as we were selling that yes, commissions are nice, and for the amount of hours, it was nice money compared to the amount of hours building. And I liked seeing people's responses. I liked being part of getting the feedback. And I also just noticed, given that being a realtor wasn't my full-time job, I was kind of more. I went more in depth on comps, and I went to see them. It's like other agents don't have time to do that. They don't have just.
Oh, that's interesting. That's a great perspective, right? That they're too busy doing other things, or by that point they're just almost cynical. But you're like, this is my project, or you don't feel the lag of what it is to be a realtor 7 days a week.
No, exactly. And I noticed often that the realtors are very reactive, right? And you see a comp, and you're like, oh my god, that's terrible for us, or oh my god, it's great for us. But if you don't go see it, you don't realize that that's because the flow was awful, or it's noisy. So things like that other agents don't do because it's not an intelligent way to divide your time. But I would. So I realized I was actually a good realtor in that regard. I didn't have the same experience on negotiating and other friendships that sometimes come in handy, within an office. But I did fine. I mean, mostly I think our houses were nice, and so they sold easily. So that wasn't a skill that had to be, that. But even sometimes we would hire other agents if something didn't sell right away, and we were never blown away by there was no magic, thing that I didn't know about. But experience is great, and I have less of it.
And like any business, I mean, of course, there are great agents who put their magic touch on it and do better with the pictures and the sale and the understanding of things. But if it's something you were able to step in and do yourself and maximize, it's a wonderful way to do it, especially for a developer, obviously. But as we said, I mean, you're a firm now. I mean, you're focused strictly on the design and architecture, right?
Well, and it's funny because we, I usually don't buy with clients, but we're going through the process with one client now, and it's actually interesting because it's a slightly difficult lot. It's in a special zone. It's on a hillside and all that stuff. So the inspection period is going to be more about what can we build? What's the code? What are we allowed to build? What's the geology? And no agent has that knowledge. So it's actually I'm adding value as a realtor for them because I can do that.
Well, you've been through it.
Pardon?
This circles all the way back to your consultant days, right? I mean, you're really wearing every hat. I mean, and you even mentioned it previously. I mean, if a client of yours is going through what it is to do a lien release to get their money back in construction, you're consulting them on doing that. You have all this capacity, which is awesome. But that's really cool to pick up a lot like that, right? And to your point, the geology, and especially hillside. Oh man, I mean, the thought about this. What about the retaining wall? What about the caissons? How far down are we going in the bedrock? These big questions that pop up. They're going to need you to walk them through that for sure.
Yeah, and those are things you can't know until you own it. So how do you kind of get the best guess? And I mean, we're such risk takers, obviously, that we will take those risks, but obviously clients usually don't. But no, so I'm finding it is helpful to be an agent sometimes for clients, even now. But even if I weren't their agent, and obviously they're not selling, knowing the market, like knowing what people look for, because everyone cares about resale. Pretty much everybody keeps that in mind, you know. And so knowing what people look for, what are big no-nos. We're talking to a client the other day who they have this small house in Venice, and it's got a difficult layout, and they have a very small budget, so it just needs to become more intelligent. And they were saying, oh, we can go in the master through the kitchen. I'm like, no, you can't. And on top of it, going to the master through the kitchen through the closet first.
Yeah,
like,
perfect. Talk about flow.
Yeah, that is no go, no bueno. I'm not putting my stamp on that. But so that's stuff like that, and the fact that we had to make money, make a living off of this, I think is super reassuring for clients, because architects and contractors alone have never had to think about that, right? They've never had to really value engineer their designs, because they had to compromise because they had to make money, and clients do most of the time. They're just like you and I, right? So that's helpful. I think that's also what clients like about us, that we think that way.
Mm-hmm.
We don't just think, oh my God, great design, I'm going to be an architect, I'm going to put my stamp on this and walk away, because I'm not building it. I'm not responsible for the budget.
Are you working mostly on single family housing? Are you doing any units or larger projects?
Mostly single family, because the design is more fun. But we've built a duplex for ourselves, which is large, like more like townhomes. And we are the neighboring property likes that building so much that we're building a mini me now next door. I don't know if you can hear the hammering, but that's our project.
Good news is I can't hear the hammering, not interfering with the audio, so I appreciate that. But this is LA. There's always something going on somewhere, right?
No, so we've done. I mean, we're kind of interested in doing smaller units, but we're not really interested in going multi. Like, I think we got our comfort zone here. We like it. It's cool. We like working with clients. We learn something every day, but it is comfortable, and it's fun pushing the design, and it's less stressful financially to not have to, like, we've got income coming in. It's not our money, so it's cool. And I think we'll keep doing projects. Like, we're actually doing a project already for ourselves, but we're going to keep it. It's our next home. But once that cash frees up again, we'll probably just do a development project at a time.
Right.
It's cool. It's fun to not have to answer to clients as well.
Sure. Well, look, if you've had some great success and it's in the blood, and you know what you're doing, obviously, it's nice that it's out there. And look, there's always going to be room to flip, right? And in some respect, or always, again, maybe not that term, but to develop a project and to see what's out there and turn it into something real. I mean, this being probably the ground zero for design, architecture, and certainly development, Los Angeles, more than any other town. I mean, this is so ripe for it.
Yeah. No, it is great. Design is appreciated, like, less than we'd like. People like beige a lot more than we would hope. Like, people disappoint me often. They're like, oh God, we put some colorful tile. So sue me. Like, it's disappointing sometimes how non-creative people can be, and that's why it's nice working for clients, because you really get to do exactly what they want. It may not be our taste, but it doesn't matter. Like, you're making them really happy, creating a space for just them. That they get to, like, I say this to clients, like, there's a difference between owning a home and being so happy you own a home, because there's a pride, and I mean, it's amazing. But then if you design it to be exactly what you want, then you wake up every day and you just, like, love your bathroom, and you literally get happy every day from looking at your tiles that you picked and your faucet, and it's like a life changer. It is a happiness changer,
That's a great way to put it. And you know what? We've just hit our 30-minute mark, so we're going to end on that. This has been enlightening, awesome, greatly appreciated that you joined us today. Jalda Hoff, the design build firm, Hoff-Genoist. Hopefully I said that correctly.
You did, well done.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I'd love to have you back some other time, but really, really appreciate you being on today. This was
Thank you. It was fun. Thanks so much, Aaron.
Absolutely.
Nice to see you.
Good to see you as well.
Bye.